Hey everyone, Bianca Zamora here again, your favorite credit coach. And today we're going to be discussing more free strategies on how to build and establish your credit. Today we're going to be discussing the best ways to build your credit when you have either no credit, just starting out, no credit score or anything like that. And also when you have, pretty bad credit as well. So I'm going to go over a couple tips with you. Hopefully you will find this helpful and will help you in generating a higher credit score even today. Okay, so these are strategies that you can implement today. Just as always, you can also book a free consultation with me by visiting my website, biancazamora.com/credit expert, or by clicking the link in the description below. You can also call our office at 702-434-4414 and schedule a call as well. All right, so let's get right into it. When you do not have any credit, meaning you have no good credit, no bad credit, no collections, the number one and easiest way to build your credit score is to be put on as an authorized user. All right, so basically you're going to add yourself to an existing credit card. Whose credit card, you might say? Well, it could be a family member like your mother, father. It could be a brother or sister or a friend, someone that you really trust, because essentially they're going to be putting you on to one of their existing credit cards. When you do this, your credit does not impact them. However, their credit is going to influence your credit profile. The next time that that credit card reports, you're either going to inherit the entire history that they've already generated, which, could be 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years. The longer, the better, right? Or at least you're going to get that particular account to start showing up on your credit report just at all. Okay, so even if you get just the account to show up, or if you get the actual entire history of the card, either way it's going to help you because it's going to add that account to your credit report. Now, if it does generate the history, the entire payment history on the account, or at least a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months, you're going to instantly get a credit score. And depending on the balance of that account, which should be very low, by the way, you can actually generate a credit score immediately. Okay, and it could be a very high score. I've seen people get added on as an authorized user and their score is already a 700 as soon as that account starts to report to their credit bureau. All right, so this is the fastest and easiest way to generate a credit score when you do not have one. This can be used, for someone that's just maybe turning 18 and starting to build their credit, or somebody that, just haven't had any credit history for a long time. All right, so the second way that you can start building credit is to open up credit builder cards. Okay, now most of these cards are not going to be super prestigious or anything like that, but they're going to be used to actually, again, generate that credit score. So a couple accounts that you can open is with a company called NCD. I'm going to have the link in the description, but they're very easy to get approved with. There is no hard inquiry, and the minimum credit score or the minimum credit limit that you're going to get is $2,500. So this is going to add a really nice trade line to the credit report. Not any, history, but it is going to start reporting fresh from, day one, but it is going to be an individual account. And it's very important, in addition to, getting maybe an authorized user, to also build up your individual credit history, because those accounts are going to actually be graded or scored more heavily than the authorized user accounts. It's my opinion that eventually authorized users are not going to have any impact to the credit scores, just because people are just using them so often, and the banks probably feel that it is an inaccurate picture, of who you are as a consumer. So I do believe authorized users are on the way out, but we can still use them for now. Okay, so again, NCD is a great retail account that you can get. I call it a bootleg Amazon because it is more expensive, but they do have a lot of products that you can purchase. And again, you do a payment plan, and you just have to make sure that you pay the account as agreed in order to not get a late payment or incur, any negative activity on your credit. Usually after about 3 to 6 months, you're going to generate a credit score based on that account. And again, as long as your balance is under 10% of the credit limit, you're going to generate a fairly high credit score. I wouldn't be surprised if you were, high sixes, 700s with this account. The second account you can open is with Fingerhut. Fingerhut is, again, a very easy account to get approved for. If you do not have any credit, they might not approve you for a very high credit limit, but again, something is better than nothing here. And they do typically increase your credit limits based on your usage. So you still want to follow the 10% rule as far as not using more than 10% of your credit limit, but you can make multiple purchases just to show that you are, actually using that account so that they can increase your credit limit. The second or the third type of account you can get is a secured credit card. Secured credit cards are really easy to get approved for as long as you're choosing the right institution. I've had a lot of clients get declined for credit cards or secured credit cards through Bank of America, even some credit unions. So it's really important that before you apply for a secured credit card, you actually ask the bank if they have any minimum credit requirements. So if they requiring a minimum credit score of 580 and you do not have a 580 credit score, then it's probably not a good idea to apply for that credit card. Other banks are not going to have a minimum credit score requirement for their secured credit cards. So that's really important to ask if you are not going to use, let's say, Capital One or Discover. So with both Capital One and Discover, they do not have a minimum credit score requirement. So if you have no credit, you can get approved for a secured credit card. I always say to try to get approved for the highest amount that you can afford. Okay, so if you have $1,000 that you can spare, that's going to be better than $200. Okay, but again, something is better than nothing in this case. Now, the downside to a secured card is that some of these banks do hold on to your money for a lengthy amount of time, sometimes 12 months, and you do have to apply to get that money back or to graduate your card at the 12-month time frame. So it's really important that you manage your accounts properly so you make sure that you get approved for the graduation of your account and that you get your money back. Okay, but secured cards are typically very easy to get approved for, again, as long as you use the right company to apply for. And I recommend typically Capital One and Discover. Okay, other things that you can do to help boost your credit is using a service called Experian Boost. Now, there's good and bad to Experian Boost. Essentially, you are linking your checking account with your account with Experian. Experian is going to run through your transactions in your bank account, and they are going to report any utility bills that you are paying. Now, you do have to have a qualifying bank, so your bank has to be registered through their Finicity program that they have, and that's actually how they report the utilities. You also have to have the utilities in your name, and your banking address and name has to match your account with Experian. So there are some things that can go wrong here, but as long as you do pay utility bills through your personal checking account, you can link that to your Experian Boost, and this is something that can instantly provide you with a credit score as well. I've had clients do this and they went from having a 0 credit score to mid 600 credit scores. I've seen people get 80-point improvement to their credit score just by adding Experian Boost. So it can be very effective, especially if you have little to no credit. It's best if you have no credit to do Experian Boost. So again, you have to be okay with linking your checking account with Experian, which, there is some privacy issues there, but, if you got to do it, you got to do it. And the last thing that you can do, well, maybe not the last thing, but another thing that you can do to generate some credit history is to sign up for a service called creditrentboost.com. So this is only going to work, of course, if you pay rent. You don't have to necessarily pay rent to a management company. company. It can be to like a private landlord. And the great part about this service is that they can go back up to 24 months in your rental history. So if you have, let's say, no credit history whatsoever, but you've been paying rent for the last 2 or 3 years, you can sign up for Credit Rent Boost. They have 3 different enrollments that you can do. You're going to want to make sure that you sign up for the past and ongoing reporting, and they can go back up to 24 months and report your payment history. Well, if you don't have any credit, just having that one account show up on your report with that 24 months of payment history is going to help you generate a credit score or a FICO score, which is amazing. In less than 30 days, sometimes as little as 2 weeks, you can go ahead and get a credit score, which is going to help you obviously get more credit. So this is, again, 4 tips that you can use when you don't have any credit at all and you're trying to generate a credit score. I'm going to list the links for some of these accounts in the description, so you can just click on the link and apply for the account directly. Okay. The next thing we're going to go over is how to build your credit if you have bad credit. So essentially, you're going to do the same thing. Okay, so bad credit and no credit, typically you build credit the same way. So with bad credit, same thing. You want to try to get as many positive authorized user accounts as possible. You want to start applying and building credit with your credit builder card. So the same ones you would get if you do not have any credit at all, you would still get if you have bad credit. With NCD, there again is no hard inquiry, so they're not basing their approval based off of your credit. You're going to apply for Fingerhut as long as you haven't defaulted with them in the past. And again, you can go for some secured credit cards with Discover and Capital One, again, as long as you have not defaulted with them in the past. You can also sign up for Experian Boost. So if you're paying utilities, even if you have bad credit, you can sign up for Experian Boost and get your utilities to report on Experian. And then you can also sign up for Credit Rent Boost to get your rental payments being, to report to the credit bureau. Just keep in mind that Credit Rent Boost only reports to TransUnion and Equifax. So if you're trying to see it on your Experian report, it's not going to show up, and vice versa with Experian Boost. Those utilities are only going to show up on Experian. They're not going to show up on TransUnion and Equifax. Okay, so now we're going to go over a couple of tips when you apply for credit. So these are actually really important things that I think a lot of people don't realize does play a factor into whether or not you're going to be approved. So when you apply for credit, most applications are going to ask you 3 questions, right? What is your monthly or annual income? What is your rental or housing expense? And your employment history. And then in addition to that, they're going to ask you for the address. So I guess that's 4 questions instead of 3. So essentially, your monthly or annual income has to be at least 3 times what you put down for your rental or housing expense. So if you're going to list your rental or housing expense, let's say as $1,500 a month, your minimum monthly income that you have to put down is $4,500. All right, and then if they ask you for your annual income, that's going to be a minimum of $54,000 annually. If you put down anything less, you are not going to get approved, okay? Because these banks want to make sure that you have enough disposable income after you pay your rent to, pay for groceries, pay for insurance, and then pay them back as well. So again, your monthly or annual income must be at least 3 times what you're going to put down for your rental or housing, and then make sure you're looking to see, are they asking for monthly income or annual? If it's annual, you have to multiply, your monthly by 12 to make sure you put down the correct amount. The second thing for your income is that you can use household income. So if it's you and your spouse, or you and your boyfriend or girlfriend, and let's say you make $50,000 and they make $50,000, you can put $100,000 down as your household income. Okay, make sure it makes sense as far as what you do. So for example, it has to make sense. The banks are going to look at what you're putting down as your income, and if it doesn't make sense based on what you do or how long you've been doing it, they might kick it back. So use your household income as long as it makes sense. But that's also a good tip to just show you do have more disposable income, because technically you do. You have two parties that are contributing to all the bills and to the household, and it can be used for your income. So again, going back to rental and housing expense, make sure that it's at least or under 30% of your monthly or annual income. So really important to keep that information there. It's also okay if you don't have a rental or housing expense. So you can put down zero, or you can put down $1 if they require you to put something in there. Okay. Employment, really, really important with employment. You have to list a 2-year employment history, typically at the same employer. Okay. So if you've recently switched jobs, that's probably not the best time to apply for credit unless you're going to put down your previous employer as your employer, because you have to make sure that you have at least a 2-year employment history at the same place. If you don't, you may need to adjust the dates to make sure that you are listing at least a 2-year employment history in the same line of work. Okay. It's also okay to list yourself as being self-employed, but honestly, if you put down that you're the president, a CEO, or a manager, or something like that, that's going to look a lot better than self-employed. Obviously, self-employed people can make great money, but banks do not like the fact that you don't work for somebody. So you have to make sure that you maybe adjust putting down that you're self-employed to maybe putting down that you're a president or the CEO or the office manager or sales manager, whatever it is that you want to put down that you do for your company. Okay. Then the last thing is your address. So a lot of people don't realize how important it is to list a proper address when you're applying for credit. You have to make sure that it's not a new address. Okay, so if you've recently moved, it's probably not a good idea to put down like a new address. You want to be using an address that you've been at for at least 6 months, if not longer. If you've moved recently, you actually probably want to use a previous address that you're at, and then just make sure that you're forwarding your mail so that you still get your credit card in the mail and all that good stuff. So again, make sure that you use an address that you've been at for at least 6 months or longer. And if you do move a lot, I would highly recommend opening up a P.O. box and just using that as your mailing address, because then you don't have to keep changing it all the time, and it's a consistent address that you can receive your billing statements to, and the banks typically like to know that you have a consistent mailing address. Okay, so these are just a couple tips when you are trying to build your credit, either from having bad credit or from having no credit. These tips are going to typically generate a credit score. Sometimes the same day you can get a credit score from zero. So go ahead and implement these strategies. Let me know if you have any questions. And again, if you would like to book a free consultation with our office, just go ahead and contact me and I'll be able to help you personally. All right. Thanks so much and have a great day.